Hey Rage, hey Pseudo, and hey everybody. Hey Raven, how you doing? Hey Board. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello.
We're alive, we're here, and if you want to follow along with us, we're using a fantastic little piece of free software called DIA. D-I-A. We're making diagrams. This isn't going to be a lot of laying code, this is going to be a lot about talking about code. Where it's going to go, how it should look, how it should work. Should be fun. Probably not for a lot of people, but it will be for us. So how's you guys doing? How's your weekend?
Pretty good.
Pretty good?
Pretty good.
Pseudo, how's your day?
It's same old, same old. Every day feels like Saturday. It's kind of strange.
Raven's drinking. Sounds like a good way to spend the Easter weekend alone. Normally I'd be surrounded by family and drinking. So I'll just be drinking.
I mean, that's basically the same thing.
Hey Pookie, how you doing? How you doing? I mean, most people's like, oh, I'm gonna be surrounded by family, I better get drunk. And now it's like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to see my family, I better get drunk. Of course, it's family's fault, right? It's always family's fault.
Always.
Always. All right. So, just so that everybody's aware, we have literally prepared a zero for this. So let's just go ahead and talk about how code should be structured, because I don't think we really needed to prepare a whole lot. Pseudo, if you can get a light on you, that'd be great. Just blast it right in your face if you can.
It's kind of super bright where I am. I don't have any sort of directional light though.
No worries, no worries. Pseudo needs Nyan cats in the background.
Lamp.
I can make that happen.
I can make that happen too.
How's my audio, by the way? I've been having some audio hardware issues recently.
Your audio sounds good. Your audio sounds good.
Perfect.
Actually, you know what? Pseudo would need to do it because he's the one doing his black screen. Your audio is always good, Pookie says. Okay. Okay. So, before we get into this, thank you, Pseudo. That's wonderful. Does anybody in chat have any idea what we're talking about at all when we talk about structuring code? Or is the rest of chat just like, what's code?
I mean, if Egg is in here, he definitely does. He gets it.
Yeah, if Egg's here, I'm sure. Sure, he could probably host this one. It's my buddy now. I wish I had a Nyan cat pet.
It looks so delicious though.
It does look delicious. I love Pop-Tarts. Did anybody see the meme if 2020 was a Pop-Tart?
I did not.
It just has this like little tiny crust of frosting along the top edge of it. Accurate. So I'm going to leave it to you guys, since you actually have more experience than even I do here. This is definitely your wheelhouse. Do you want me to give you control? Do you want to share? I guess we need your camera. You can just tell me what you want. We can do it that way.
Sure. This is going to get interesting. I guess if we're drawing just a top level diagram, the first thing we should probably do is just draw the kind of communication layer we'll need. So if you can draw a box for like the Twitch chat, and then draw a box under it for RageBot, and then you can draw a box under that for the actual game engine itself.
We want to zoom in slightly as well.
Yep. Gotta actually let me type first, though.
No.
You wanted to just say RageBot?
Yeah, that's fine. Because I figured we're using RageBot to interface in between Twitch chat and the game.
So the way I'm thinking of this is we've essentially got a bus, aka Twitch chat, and the Whisper system that is already pre-existing. We've already got our our ability to send messages back and forth.
Stop making things. Thank you.
Stop creating elements. I'm just trying to type.
I just wanted to click on it. I didn't want 3 more. Rage's voice is a bit low.
I can deal with that. I am louder now.
Allah? No, huzzah. There we go.
Basically the same thing.
Huzzah! Ah! Dia's being super awesome for it. It's not even new software, it's just not cooperating with me. I've used it before. I mean, yes, this is the first time ever using it, and don't judge me.
You had a legitimate excuse. I set it up for you and you didn't take it.
I'm too honest, what can I say? I blame the lack of smoke. That's the problem. That's always the problem. Alright, so we've got Twitch chat talking to RageBot, talking to Game Engine.
Yeah, that Game Engine's gonna blow up into a bunch of things. I'm just trying to think of the best way to encapsulate it.
Yeah, and
boxes within boxes from our division.
Yeah, and keep it readable to hopefully everyone.
But we want to at least put in the input handler. So the first thing that it's going to talk to, it's just going to receive input from anywhere, which will just happen to be RageBot.
Yep.
Which then I would imagine would either push that into a like event processing, or directly from the input handler put commands on a command queue. And then we'll have an event processor that's currently always running through and taking commands off the command queue and running them, and then putting out output.
So is it going to go from the handler to the event queue? And then the event queue holds it until the handler? The word escaped me now. You just said it.
Event processor.
Thank you. So the event queue holds it until the event processor gets it?
Event processor will just always be grabbing things off the queue, but there's multiple sources that can put onto the event queue and not just the input handler.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for anybody listening, like realistically, our game isn't going to be that big, but it does have to handle input from a variety of different places. The input handler for main chat, for instance, will be different than the input handler for the Whispers system. And then eventually when we decide that we've had enough of dealing with the Whisper system's BS, and we want to implement some sort of browser extension, we'll need to have another input handler for that. So you want to be able to use all of those simultaneously, so you have them go into the queue and get processed from there, rather than calling the processor directly.
Do you want me to call this a specific input handler?
For now, it doesn't need to be specific.
Okay.
Yeah, the input handler can still technically handle multiple inputs. It can still be the one black box.
So we'll just add a multi-input. Keep everyone clear.
There we go.
The multi-input will probably always go to the event queue, I'd imagine. Will there be stuff to skip the event queue?
Yeah, I was thinking when we start talking about like admin tools and stuff like that, we can think about priorities and the ability to push things to the front of the stack.
That's fair. That's fair. We do want admin tasks to just happen.
Yeah, but just for now, for high level, it'll just be input handler puts things in the event queue. The event processor will also be putting things on the event queue.
Yeah, the event processor can go backwards.
Kind of. The event processor will trigger other commands to run as well.
Yep. We'll put a back and forth with the event queue and event processor. If event processor grabs something and decides it's not going to handle it right away, it probably won't hold on to it. It'll let event queue worry about it and do its thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, say you kick off an animal evolution or what have you, that will incur maybe stat changes, something like that. That will have to go back into the queue, be processed.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So the thing happens, and then the results of the thing go into the queue so that they also happen.
Yeah. Because you're only taking the input into account at this point.
Yeah.
And you like architecturally want a single queue for your single concern. And our single concern at this point is handling interaction between the player and the game itself.
Fair.
Okay, this is where I'm going to start getting a little bit tricky, because this is when we start getting into more of like the logic modules. The way I kind of envision this running is try to keep things as modular as possible, almost even like a microservice kind of deal where everything just kind of sends data off somewhere and other modules just take data in, and we can configure how that works. So try to keep things not, or try to keep them as decoupled as possible. But I think we need a module for, we need a game state manager. And I'm not sure if we need a player state manager or if that can be inside the game state manager, but we might need an individual player state manager if it's going to be multiplayer. And we want to track each player's individual state during an event, but I'm not sure if that's even needed for the initial implementation, because I believe it might just be game, because I think only one thing will probably happen at a time.
I think having the concept of player state like in our minds when we're doing V1, because V1, like I absolutely agree, we probably don't need a player state manager.
Let's not say don't need, but let's say could get away without.
No, straight up, we probably don't need it. But it is something that we should be cognizant of, and like if it's close enough to the game state manager, if we can write them elegantly enough, then we might as well just do it now.
Yeah, fair enough. So then we need a game state manager as well as a player repository. And these two will have a relation to the event processor. The player repository, I need a better name for it, but it's basically what we will use for like actually managing the animals and races and stuff like that. So that's kind of where these are going to be held, and that like all the information. So if a player is turning into a certain animal, it needs to grab that data from the player repository.
Yeah, I guess your repository isn't great.
Yeah, so maybe animal repository, but
or data store.
Yeah, I try to stay away from data store. Well, repository means like data store.
Yeah, I know what repository means.
It's just one of those things in programming that is always difficult. Good naming.
Yeah, names are hard. Names are like the hardest part of programming. It's what literally takes me the longest at work. Is just like, how do I name this shit?
Yeah.
How do I name it something good and consistent? And
Absolutely.
Half the time before I make a PR, it's just going through and renaming all my stuff to something consistent, because like halfway through I just started changing it up because I thought this.
Well, and that's the thing, right? You get partway through designing something and you go, oh no, wait, this is terrible. We've missed this core assumption that we need to have. Or you get halfway through writing something and you just go, wow, none of these names make any sense because I changed the entire paradigm I was using halfway through this.
And you do want your naming to make sense. Like, a lot of people have the, oh, well, I knew what it meant, so they'll just continue writing code, but other people look at your code. Name has to be intelligible to other human beings, not just yourself.
So fortunately for us, things will be fairly basic since we don't have to worry about like physics too much. And since this is just text, and it is for the time being not even really that much input, we kind of just can handle everything without even have to worry about like concurrent multiplayer. It's just kind of a event system, and you run through it.
That's the plan. Keep it as simple as possible so we can actually get something created for point 1.
Yep. Having a working beta is a very important part of building a game.
It is indeed. All right.
Working being one of the key words.
And there's not too much we really need to add for this right now. There's stuff if we want to plan out later we can keep in mind, but like we don't need like an audio module. We don't need anything too technical. We do need some sort of rendering or output, but I'm not too sure what we're even going to do for that yet, because that's just going to be text, but we should still at least have a output module planned that we can expand on.
Yeah, I mean, well, right now the output module will have to talk to Twitch chat, right? So it will have to interface with our Twitch chat.
I thought it would interface with RageBot on our behalf, and RageBot would be able to kind of relay that to Twitch.
Okay, so it's just basically going to structure and put together the responses?
I believe so.
Okay.
Makes sense to me. Like RageBot's already got the ability to say things in chat. So
Yep. Well, yeah, no, I figured it would piggyback through RageBot because it's already talking to Twitch chat, and Twitch chat's it's reading and talking to Twitch chat already. That part's done.
let me see. Let me think about this for a moment. I feel like we're missing something.
Yeah, we're missing. Yeah, we're missing logging.
Yes, that's important. That wasn't what I was thinking of, but that is also important.
Yeah, we're missing quite a few other things. I'm trying to think right now.
I'm just adding them as we name them. We'll have a list of what we need to add to it. So we said a response handler, basically.
Just a render module would be fine. Output handler would probably encapsulate most.
We also need the ability to actually interface with the databases that we'll be using. I've currently got some I/O set up in one of the projects. I think I added you to Sudo. Maybe.
Maybe. Send me a link. I'll see if I can access it.
Oh, I gotta log in again.
I guess I'm trying to keep it English and then using DBIO, which most people probably won't understand.
Data layer. Or communications layer for the data layer. Let's just make everything database access objects. It'll be fine. Why would you ever worry about having a convoluted ORM for a thing that really doesn't need an ORM? Why? Okay, I literally can't get you a link to the repo. My phone refuses to take my fingerprint.
Phone say no?
Yep.
That's unfortunate.
Two-factor authentication is a wonderful thing and a terrible thing.
Yep. I got to deal with it a little too early. You know, that span where tech is implemented but shouldn't be implemented.
The tech's there. It just really sucks.
Yeah. So they were using it at the high schools. And one of the, I was doing support there. They just got brand new laptops for all the teachers. And one of the shop automotive teachers enrolled his thumbprint on it as a BIOS level security. And when he enrolled his thumbprint on it, it was greasy.
Because he's a shop teacher.
Yes. So we couldn't perfectly replicate the grease on his finger, so we couldn't unlock the laptop ever again.
Can't be done.
And it turns out that 2FA thumbprint scan on the main board stored it on an NVRAM chip that was inaccessible on the main board.
Which, to be fair, is good for security.
Oh yes, great for security. However, it also meant that we had to have Dell come out on site and swap out the main board in the laptop so we could use it again.
No, I did not send you an invite, Sudo. I will do that if you send me some sort of contact for GitLab on Discord.
Sure, I'll do that now.
So we've got our database I/O. We've got rendering, which will essentially just be sending things over to RageBot for this point. Invite by email.
I guess the event queue would have to go both ways with the handler as well,
No.
No?
No.
Oh, only handler putting on queue?
Yeah, and then it will talk to the output. Or actually, no, at all. The event processor will talk to the output.
How do I... Oh, good, I've got it. Okay. There we go. There we go. But the input handler... Okay, so yeah, game engine goes to input handler. Right.
Yeah, all these modules basically are just game engine.
Yeah.
should
No,
say
I
everything
get that.
game
I
engine.
was just... I just finished my dab and things were a little backwards for a second there.
Little fuzzy.
I was like, input is input, so it goes into game engine. Wait a minute. That's not right. All right. Now the dab is fully kicked in, and that's why I have it the right way. This is why I need the dabs.
So I think we've got like sort of a basic skeleton of the design here.
Yep.
What
of these do we actually need any for 1.0? Probably player state manager.
Definitely need game state manager. 100%. We're
going to need the animal repository.
Our animal repository. Yep.
Since we do have more than one animal.
We will definitely need our render module. Logging we definitely want, but strictly speaking, we don't need for 1.0.
Well, if you ever wanted to get past 1.0, you do.
Yeah. But, I mean, are we a startup? Because then, yeah, why would we ever log anything? The DBIO is also very necessary, but mostly built. So.
Yeah. We still want to put it in the model. This isn't just for us, this is for everyone. Let's try to fit these all in, help people understand how it actually works.
So the event processor is what will interface with all of those things on the left now. It will be able to actually take actions within the game itself.
Logging as well?
Yep.
DBIO?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then the logging service will be able to talk to whatever we're using for logging, and render module will be able to talk to RageBot. Which makes for a very awkward line.
I can do it. There we go.
Yay, less awkward.
I'm good at less awkward. I'm pedantic like that.
Now, what are you thinking for game state manager pseudo? Because I'm envisioning basically a pure function stealing the flux pattern that just generates game state, but I know that isn't always appropriate for game engines because it's often too slow.
I think we're fortunate enough that we can actually be slow with this right now because we're stuck behind the Twitch stuff at the time being,
and we're also
we have quite a funnel in front of us too. I'm fine with even the most basic implementation of just whatever kind of like we can plan out the actual like game properties we'll have because I'm sure there's not going to be much because it's just going to be like what's currently going on right now, and there's not really too much we can do via one besides like the current fight, and I doubt we're going to have concurrent fights. So even that being that, it can just have the whole singleton of the game state of the current fight right now, what's happening, and then resolved, and then it just has an open state, and then it can take in another match, and then it's in match, and then it finishes it and resolves it, and then it's back to open and can receive another match. And those matches can queue up in the event queue and just process it through that way.
I like it.
Actual like action dispatcher and like all that stuff. Yeah, I think it's fine just to process it that way.
Well, and I think that like that's encapsulated by our event processor box as well.
Yeah,
Like the actual implementation itself at this point is unimportant. But one of the things that concerns me is making sure that we don't get clogged in our state. Like essentially we don't do a DB lock with our game state.
yeah. I don't think game state should talk to a database at all.
No, I don't mean literally a DB lock. I think like metaphorically, like game state is locked while an operation is happening, so that's stopping other operations from happening, and it just piles up a gigantic queue.
Right. Yeah, like it depends on how
How active you think the bot's going to be, basically.
kind of. I'm trying to think of how much. Oh, the word's really hard today. I drink a
Words
coffee.
are always hard, man.
Like how much the actual battle will affect other things, and if there's no reason why we can't do concurrent. If the event processor can just, let's say we just have a battle manager that's part of the game state manager, or like the actual battle, and you can just pull one off the queue and start doing those, and we can limit how many of those we want to have at once. But that game state manager will basically just manage that stuff that's going on there, but doesn't have to do it one at a time. We can just, do a bunch of them if we want to have multiple things running at the same time. But this is also something where we can build it that it's able to do that, but just keep it at one at a time. And then if we find that we need it, then it's something that we can kind of scale up if necessary.
Well, if we
But
take,
I don't see.
if we take half a second, think about the combat. The result right now is really doesn't impact anything at all.
Except for player state.
Yeah, and as long as a player can't be in two battles at once, then I think it's fairly. Man, there's a word for this, and I can't think of it. It's not mutable. But yeah, if it's isolated, then I think it's fine. We can probably just have them all just happening.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine. I don't.
They'll only ever the way I'm
envisioning.
envisioning. Yeah, when we start doing multiplayer battles, we can start worrying about that. That's very much a 2.0 thing. The thing that I'm envisioning as a mechanism for storing these battles is essentially an ordered hash, or maybe just a hash that can track different nodes that are different battle states and results. That way it keeps it fairly flat, keeps it easy to access things.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that should be fine. I don't see any reason why not.
And then if we do that, then dispatching actions against our game state should still be fast because you're not doing a bunch of object traversal. I'm also making the assumption that this is going to be written in Node. Just putting that out.
Yeah, I think that was a given.
That's where the bot already lives, right? So.
Yeah, but this could theoretically be an entirely different surface. I said surface, I meant service, but surface is also accurate because APIs. It could be an entirely different thing. Like this could be its own service.
Or we could go way too hardcore and make every single module a different language, different service.
Nah, just write it all in Elixir. It'll be fine. I love Elixir, but I am so bad at pure functional programming.
Well, I was actually thinking that this is simple enough for a pure functional game.
Oh no, absolutely. Like the node that we will be writing will be mostly functional. This won't need much OOP. But if you've ever looked into Elixir, you will know my pain. It breaks your brain, and it resets all your expectations for how you write programming. It steals a lot from Erlang, for instance.
Oh yeah.
And it runs on the Erlang VM. And it is wonderful and incredibly scalable and really parallelizable, and you just die when you try and write it.
The game state manager should probably be able to put events on the event queue. That should probably be a relation.
Yes.
Done.
I'm going through all my game engine architecture examples of designs, and like we don't need like any of it. It's kind of nice.
Yeah,
Just like
very
it's
simple.
entirely giant charts and diagrams and models of all the different modules and the things you need. And I'm like, yeah, we don't need any of that. I'm very
We
glad.
basically just need a fancy event queue.
Yeah, that's basically it's just
Event queue and event processor. The event processor is going to be the biggest piece
we
of this.
just need some if statements and then some way to put some values to those if statements.
Oh, so we're machine learning.
Yes.
Zing.
There's 7 people going, I don't get it.
Yeah. But it was funny for me, and that's
I
what
laughed.
counts. Because we can have the state untied from the IO. We can have the state untied from the render module. We can definitely have the state untied from the animal repository.
I'm putting player state manager here because it's actually included in a thing. It's just not tied in.
Yeah, it's
The battle manager is up in the we've talked about this. It's a thing that might exist corner.
yeah. I think it's a good idea. The more I think about it, like it will be part of the game state management, but it
I'm with
should
you.
be its own module.
I'm with you. If not for any other reason than just single purpose task. And in the future battle is going to get much bigger, so it is definitely going to be its own thing with its job. Maybe even multiple things with its own job.
So that's a discussion I've actually been reading a lot about lately, and not to go too deep into it.
We got time to go deep into it. So
For Twitch's sake, because this is gonna fly over a lot of heads. I think
we've done enough dumb English lately that we can fly over people's heads once in a while, just so that people go, oh, they actually do know a thing or two.
Fair. I think the term micro being in the phrase microservice really hurts it, because it tells people to do the wrong thing. It tells them to be overly abstracty and overly single purpose, to the point where it then hurts your infrastructure and becomes a giant nightmare to debug and work with, and everything just gets way too abstracted.
Yeah, and things being their own thing when it doesn't even actually add anything is.
Yeah, if it's only consumed in one spot.
Yeah,
like it just shouldn't be its own thing at that point.
No, it's part of something else at that point. It should be part of the thing that consumes it.
But if instead of saying, oh, we're using a microservice architecture, people said, yeah, we're using a service-based architecture.
There you go.
Then that would be a lot less nonsensical.
Almost like pedantic words matter. Go figure.
It does. It gives you the wrong impression of what to do with the tool set. Much like people think the Redux library is only for use with web front end. No, it's actually just like an event processor on a plain JavaScript object. You can use it anywhere in JavaScript. You don't need to use it with React. You don't need to use it with Angular. You don't need to use it with Vue. It can totally be its own entity, and I think it's probably a good idea to have that be our game state management, because it's so robust and well tested.
I'm good with that. I mean, it goes to the core principle philosophy of programming, but don't reinvent the wheel. If you have something that'll do the job, use the thing you have that'll do the job until it won't do the job anymore.
Until it becomes a problem. Once it becomes a problem, absolutely, go look for alternatives or build your own. But until it's a problem, why?
Yep. The only time you shouldn't be using that big, robust, well-built thing is if you have really, really simple needs where you can build something that will do your simple needs simply and you don't need all of the junk that comes with the thing. Then build your own little simple thing. Sure.
Or if you need performance. Although I have also done applications of Redux where I go in and strip out a lot of the safety code to make it faster, and Redux is actually pretty fast. It's just all the safety that slows it down.
You just don't need to be safe. It's okay. Just take the seatbelt off and go.
I'm frequently reminded of it was actually when I was a little kid. I was like, I wasn't even a teenager yet. I used to go rollerblading all the time with my buddies, and the very first thing we would do when we got new rollerblades is pull the back wheel off so we could get that back brake off. My mom's watching us pull all our brakes off of our rollerblades before we go out, and she's like, "Don't you need the brake?" My buddy looks at her and goes, "Nah, they just slow you down."
I like that one. Okay, so we've probably got our battle manager and player state manager like inside of game state. Maybe we should represent that because they're here.
Or they're going to be their own thing still, though, right?
Sure, but the event processor will probably just talk directly to the game state manager for.
Yeah, I just had to be clear that they're still there so I can do this and make it make sense. Because that's how the communication should go.
Will probably just say, "Hey, game, go make this change to your state," and then the game state manager goes, "Oh, hey, that has to do with this battle state manager. You go do something about that."
So I just want to point out to people that if you look at where the arrows are going here, our event processor is going to get kind of complicated. It talks to a lot of things. Our game state manager is going to be complicated. It talks to a lot of things. Those are the things that you would expect to be doing most of the work. You're thinking of the name. And pretty much everything else on this is one or two connections. They're pretty simple. They don't talk to a lot of things. They do their job and they give their data back.
And this does also sort of work under the assumption that we know each other. We know like the principles of writing clean code. We know that we can do this all modularly and not have interdependencies even within a single, parent module. For instance, the game state manager, which inside of it may have a specific module for talking to the battle manager, may have a specific module for talking to the or the player state manager, or in the event processor, there will probably have some workers spooled up so that it can talk to things that would be blocking in a way that is non-blocking so that the processing can continue.
I think you confused more people than you helped there.
Are you saying that we can't just put it all into the main function and then just use goto?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what real programs do.
Well, I mean, that is what the most hardcore programmers do. So that's what assembly is.
Well, it's also what it's a hack that Lodash uses in order to speed up if and switch statements, even though switch statements are already crazy fast. To once again fly over people's heads, the JavaScript compiler ends up inlining to goto statements up until you hit a certain memory threshold, and then it will actually revert to a hash lookup for your different properties.
Interesting.
Which is slower than a goto, but less memory intensive, so it makes it able to run on more devices. And if you then just write gotos, which you can kind of hack in with like named what's the term for those named blocks, pseudo?
Named blocks? I'm not good with names.
Sure, named blocks. You can go to named statements. That's what it is.
There you go.
You can go to a named statement, and it will use a goto under the hood, so you can just jump straight into it rather than having to go through that hash lookup.
That's one of the times where it becomes very beneficial to understand what your compiler is actually doing so you can write your code for your compiler.
And that is why Lodash is stupid fast.
Also why it's beneficial to know your compiler. On the same note of understanding your compiler, I saw a story a while back on Slashdot where MIT picked apart a bunch of compilers and looked at how the compilers were compiling code in different ways and found all sorts of code level vulnerabilities that were created by how the compilers managed their code. So if your code was made on that compiler, it was vulnerable to the exploit that they found. Doesn't matter how well you wrote your code, just that you used that compiler.
Yeah, it was a scary day when I realized that not all compilers are made equal. We had a class in school, it was my C class, and we had to take it was a doubly linked list and then go through and then I think we had to either reverse it all or take the data that it was storing and then reverse all the strings of the data. It was some just data management project, but it like the tests that you had to run it through would fail if you used the Windows compiler in Cygwin, but they would pass all fine if you compiled it in Linux. So everyone who was using Windows was freaking out because there's a bug in the Windows compiler for GCC, and then everyone who's on Linux is fine, and everyone's freaking out. And our professor's like, he's like, I run the tests on Linux, it's fine, don't worry about it. And it's like, okay, well, hopefully, when it says it failed, it's actually just a false positive. But it's kind of scary. I'm like, oh man, that's kind of fucked that it just wouldn't.
Don't worry about it. I run the tests on Linux. Yeah, but teach, I don't know if it works.
And it's like you compile it on Windows, it just isn't going to do the thing properly on Windows. Like that's kind of scary. We're doing pretty basic stuff. We're just like navigating doubly linked.
Yeah, not exactly the most complicated task to do in programming, but it, like you said, it really does throw into light compiler differences and how those compilers and can actually optimize to be run against different CPUs. For instance, the CLang compiler was basically owned by Intel for a long time, and the code that it output just ran better on Intel chips. It just did. And it was specifically built that way by Intel engineers under the guise of helping optimize the CLang compiler, which is one of the many reasons why I don't like Intel.
What? You mean big corporations are shisty? I had no idea.
I do mean that.
I'm shocked and amazed. You've shattered my whole view of the corporate world.
Right? I mean, not to say that AMD
me.
under old management probably wouldn't have done the same thing if they were in the position to do so.
Most companies would. That's the point of my statement. Yeah.
Can we talk about the animal repository? Because I have some ideas on how I want that. I might need some ways to handle it. Because I view all the actual like game objects not being, at least like the stats and all that stuff, I view that of not being in code at all. I view that as all just being in like JSON files that get read in on startup, and then can just be modified. So we'll need just some sort of collection.
Rage wants to say something. Oh, I'm licking his lips.
Just a tidbit of information that you do not have up till this point. So far, all of our I/O is going to a NoSQL database. Just FYI.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be in the database. I don't think it needs to be saved in there. I think it needs to be saved somewhere that we can write tools that can edit JSON files and then save those and just read those in. Because I don't think the game itself will change those stats. I think we'll be changing those externally. Those are kind of just configuration.
They're not player stats, they're requirement stats, so they're not going to change very often. All we really need to do is write in an extra little function. Since it's NoSQL, it can be edited live in real time. It's all pretty fine and easy, so just write in a function so we don't even need to kill the app, just wipe out what's there, pull in the fresh data, continue on.
Yep, that'll totally work. The one concern with that would be I/O latency. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think Sudo's idea is even better, where we just keep those things locally and they can be loaded into memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, but that way it's just actual on disk and on memory. And if we want to make changes to it while it's running, we can just actually make changes to JSON files. And with a file watcher, it'll just run the reload and reload those in-memory game objects. So we'll just have like an animal class that basically just has all of the possible. We'll have properties for all the possible stats, and those actual values get filled in by that kind of JSON file loaded manager. In there, we can do a lot of cool things for like inheritance if we want, because we can do like in the JSON file, it can have like a parent, and you just give it the name of the parent. So when we're actually populating this in memory, it just sets the parent, sets those stats, and then reads in the current level of stats and overwrites them. So then that way we don't have to have like a bajillion files and a bajillion text things. If we want to tweak settings, then we can just tweak it in one file. So let's say if like let's say like the wolf to coyote thing. Let's say we go from coyote to wolf, and then we'd say, okay, well, we want to put in wolf, but let's say there's some base stats from coyote that don't need to change, that like aren't relevant. Then we don't need to put that in that file. We just need to put in the values that change for wolf for that transition.
It's not going to be a ton of data anyway, and it's not going to be done very often.
I just worry about inheritance. Too many layers of abstraction and indirection can be a problem. But it could also just be fine. Could be a non-issue. Depends on how deep we go on an animal tree.
Well, there's no requirement to be one before the other, right? They could have completely different stats and requirements, and you could skip all of them and jump right to the top one from another one and do a horizontal move. So I don't know if there's any need for inheritance or anything there. Just raw base requirement stats and just a raw list. This animal requires this requires this requires this. You can pull the numbers from.
Yeah.
It's just if we wanted, depending on how many of these things get added, it's going to get to the point where it might be unmanageable.
Well, if it gets to that size, that's when we should go NoSQL, because the NoSQL is going to be much more easy to manage and query and pull data out of.
That's still the same thing. That's not really the problem. The problem is on our side, the actual data management of tweaking numbers. If we want to patch things, if we want to adjust numbers, we now have to go in and open each individual file and tweak things and go through and make these adjustments rather than just kind of trying to group things together. But it's an unnecessary complication right now, but it's something we can keep in mind of if we're reading in from memory. Hey, we have the ability to implement base levels and base stats. If we want to have like a relative family that they're going to have these base stats, so we can tweak them all at the same time, then we can do that and override if necessary, because we can still fill out an entire stat and it'll still override every single stat. But then let's say if we're finding out that like this entire family of animals, even though you can beat any of them, we all still have the same similar restriction, and there's no point in us, copy pasting the same data every single time.
I may end up putting all of the animals into an Artisy project, make it easier to look through and manage and sort out. I can make the Artisy project available to everyone. I'll show everybody the Artisy app as well. It's what I use to do my stories and a lot of game design. It organizes and sorts things well. I'll show you some of the tools. You'll like it. But one of the things that I can do with that is output a JSON file of the data that's in there. And that's how we were doing Battle of Ages for the card game. All the cards are in Artisy, and then I just dump out a JSON file. And then I had a Java app that took that file and turned it into a CSV file that was formatted to go into our database of cards, and then Jason could just drop that in.
Yeah, I mean, that'd probably be perfect if we just put it to JSON and then we just have it formatted in a way that this thing can just parse and read it in on startup.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And then we can have the Artisy app being used to organize things and structure things, and we can lay them out in any way we want and sort things, keep everything nice and straight, and then just output a dump file for the data for the game. Artisy, by the way, if you're using Unreal Engine, has a built-in piece to export in UE readable formats. So you don't need to do any extra work. You can just literally export right from there to UE and from UE. Have you ever played with it? Do you have it, Pseudo?
Not Artisy. I've looked into it a few times, but I've been on the unfortunate thing of always trying to write my own tools, which is not a good time. So I really should be playing around with, the work that other people have done.
Yeah, Artisy's great. I strongly recommend it. And usually you can get a personal license for cheap on Steam.
I just pulled up their website and I was looking at the subscription tiers that they have, and that is a lot of money.
Oh yeah, it is a serious and legitimate tool. It is fantastic. I love it. It does a lot of cool things. So like one of the things that it's really mainly built for is story writing, but game story writing, so that you can have different arcing paths. And then each node of your story can branch off into different events. You can click into it, you can input character assets and the text and everything, so you can actually see characters. You can see the scene that they're going to be in the story. You can actually have zones drawn on the scene, movements. You can do frame by frames with it on top of it all. And then once you have all these different paths written,
Nice to meet you.
Hey Sable, welcome. Glad to have you with us. So once you have all these different potential paths in your game story, then you can plot paths along it, sort of like a story idea within the system. So you can hit play and it'll play through this series of choices for you, and you can make sure that it's contiguous and makes sense, and you can watch it play out in your mind.
Very cool. Very cool tool.
Yeah.
Just very expensive tool.
Oh yeah, it's not cheap. I think I paid $100 for it, for a personal license to use forever on Steam on sale. That was totally worth the $100. I'll pull it up a little bit for you. While you guys are thinking of that, I'll show you what I mean. I don't have a lot of work done in it right now. Oh, I guess I can open up I can open up this. Do a bit of that. So this is actually being used to organize all our cards. So here you have all the different power cards, nature cards, greed cards, compassion cards, neutral cards, then sorted by type. When you go in, you can see name, card ID, function. All of this is stored into the JSON for you. Different play costs. How all of this is made. See what locations. I don't have any yet, but here's where we could actually import a game asset from the game itself and create a map out of it and write story and put important marks on the map, and all of that can be exported again. You wanted to say something there?
Oh, just that you could, in theory, have locations, despite that you do not currently.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the features. So card basics is the name, the faction, the rarity, the subtype, the main type, abilities, and lore. Not a card, we still need a name and a faction for it. The permanent stats, life, attack, mana. So if it's a permanent card, it has all this. Play cost, so if it's going to have a play cost, you add that in. These are your features. And then you create templates out of it. Entities. All right, so now we've got all of this automatically assigned to anything that is an entity with physical stats in my layout.
Nice.
Yeah, all of it just exports directly into Unreal Engine, and then a little bit of work to import into anything else you want. Absolutely play with this one if you haven't.
Does seem particularly dope.
Yeah, it does seem it's worth the hefty price tag.
Oh yeah. I mean the ones where Rage was saying it's quite expensive. Those were the production licenses where you can use it to actually create a game and make money with said game. So yeah, they get expensive on those.
Yeah, the enterprise solution was almost $200 a seat per month. Not cheap.
What more do we need here? So we have a JSON. We're going to use the JSON path, and I'm going to do we're going to do that. So I'll write the Artisy project. Okay.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't necessarily have to be RC, as long as we have a consistent format that RC can also do. And then we can kind of do whatever too, right? But as long as it's JSON, then
If
we
you
just
want
have
it,
a
if you want it to
we can
get big and keep manageable, then starting the project in there is probably going to be the best thing to do.
If we need to go in and tweak something, we can do it in whatever tool, but actual management should probably happen in Artisy.
Yeah, definitely. It's gonna be super handy, especially when we get down to like locations and stuff. Okay. Reading through my notes. Yeah, I'm kind of grateful we don't need like that's the only resource management we really need is that one bit of JSON for the time being. I'm assuming eventually we'll have assets, but
Database input output layer, is that still being used here?
I'm not too sure what we're storing yet, but it'll probably be like history of matches and stuff like that, and any actual state that we want to persist between startup and anything that we don't want to lose if the server goes like boom. Basically needs to go into database input output.
So really, it should be like the game state manager. Should be talking to it.
Yeah, some things. I think it might be an event that we want to do that through rather than directly through the game state manager.
Okay.
I think we can fire off like the game state manager can fire off at an event, so it's not going to block the game state manager from trying to do something if the database is locked for whatever reason. The event processor will just kind of put that in a separate bit of a. We can have it so like it'll try to.
Basically, we'll send a message back from the game state manager to the event processor. So I've drawn the return line for the communication, and then the event processor will take that request to write into the database the game state information, put it into its queue, and process it in whatever priority it's going to have. It'd probably be skipping some priorities, and fairly important to get that written when it needs to be done.
The event queue will get a bit complicated because we'll want to be able to. We'll be managing multiple different parts, and that thing will probably break down to probably kind of like pseudo sub queue things, but it'll still just be one event queue. But we want to be able to try to do these things that can fail and then not get blocked by them. So we have the ability to like, all right, write this to the database output, but don't pop this off the queue until it's been succeeded. But if it doesn't succeed and it's a queue allotment, then bump it, like push it to the back of the queue and keep going forward and try it. And if we want to put in like a fail threshold, we can, but for the time being, I view it kind of like that. So then that way we don't have anything blocked on anything that is like input output dependent. We don't have to worry about like, let's say our database service locks up and freezes and now all of a sudden, we can't play the game. At least if that happens, then it's like, well, the game will truck on and we'll have a backlog of things we need to save to it. But if that's the case, then we can also put in a separate threshold of like, oh, the database fucks up for, X amount of input, then we can have edge case handling. Like, all right, well, dump to file and just keep doing that until it comes back on. And whenever the service comes back, read from file. Then
Yeah, that sounds more 2.0.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, as long as everything's like event queue based, then we can truck forward in those kind of ways and expand on.
Yeah. So essentially, what you're saying is exactly what the graph has been telling us the whole time too. The event queue and the event processor are going to be the two most complicated parts of this.
Yeah.
And the game state manager following close behind.
The event processor though can also be it could be dumber.
Mm-hmm.
It could essentially just be a router for events. But then we would need to be doing much more work up in the input handler, which may end up being better because it only has to take from one place and send to one place.
Yeah, we can definitely do the kind of like dispatcher, and then all these people can be like consumers. Mm-hmm. So then it just forwards on their actions to these different modules, and these modules just consume them and then know how to do it that way. And then they can process on their own thing and have their own queue if they want. But
maybe most complicated is a bad choice of term. Most important.
Yes, definitely most important.
Most important is the terminology I'm looking for here.
I do like the idea of having a very thin event processor. Mm-hmm. Just keeping it clean because it has the potential to get so complicated because it does have to do so many things.
Well, the more it does, the more latency it adds to, right? everything runs through it, then simpler is going to be better. As long as we have the security and the checks and bounds in place, then simpler is better.
And validation will probably be happening in the input handler.
Yes.
Input
validation will be happening there. But anything anything that you still want validation farther down the line too. Once it actually goes to put the data into the place, you still want to make sure it's the right kind of data.
Yeah, for sure. But keep in mind, once we get past the input handler, it is all internal APIs, so they can be more lax. Not non-existent, but more lax.
My key is not non-existent. I've seen some shit.
Yeah, we work together.
Yeah. Yes, we've seen. I'm sure Sudo's seen some shit too. He hasn't even been working that long yet, but I'm sure he's seen some shit. He's seen enough.
So unfortunately, my job is to clean up shitty code.
That's working in code. That's what your job is. You have two jobs. There's two types of jobs in code: fixing shitty code or writing shitty code. I don't know how the people get the job to write the shitty code or how they keep them, but most of the intelligent people I know do the fixing shitty code side.
Yeah, a lot of my jobs when we started were just software contracts where the code was handled by previous devs or outsourced somewhere, and it came back unusable, and they're like, okay, well, we're just gonna go to a local shop and get them to make it usable. And I inherit these things that are directly copy pasted from examples and still have the names var example, var my var, and a bunch of other really fun PHP scripts that are just straight up copy pasted but nothing changed, and then just commented out. And it's like, oh, this is a 3,000 line file with nothing. It's just nothing in here. It's just a bunch of comments and a bunch of stuff and a bunch of weird stuff. And I've seen a lot of weird things.
It's a megalith with no actual code.
I've had this one function that was like a couple hundred lines long, and it was for it was doing a calculation for an assessment. So it was like a test, and then based off a bunch of answers, it does a bunch of pretty. It's not too terrible, but it's quite a bit of calculation it needs to do, comparing what answers were, the given answers for which and how they can make it. It has a huge formula for this. It goes through the whole thing, and at the very end, the return value was commented out, and it just returns 35. It's just okay.
What?
Okay, computer, here's what I want you to do. Do all the work and then give me 35.
Yeah, because they wrote a new function that cleaned up the scoring, and instead of running it to the old function, they just wrote scoring v2 and then run the old one, return 35, which is the base, and then just rescore it with the new function. And it was just okay.
Well, in their defense, if you really needed to heat your living area, that's a great way to do it.
You got the CPU cycles. You just got to use them, right? If you don't use them, you lose them.
No, it doesn't work that way. It's not the same as the planes, which is ridiculous. That's a rant that I have that I shouldn't go on right now. Planes are flying all over the world empty right now. Just because if they don't fly the plane on the time that they've been allotted to fly the plane, they lose that slot to someone else, even if the plane was going to be empty. So to prevent losing their flight slots, they just fly the planes empty. It's really a stupid system. It's a really, really stupid system. I understand why it's that way. It's a difficult system to work. There are a lot of different flight paths and wind streams that need to be avoided, and planes need to go in very specific ways at very specific times to get to specific places without running into things. And if you just take them out of there, then a lot of things fall apart. But I'm sure we could come up with it.
So I have an important thing that might make this graph get really ugly really fast, but we need to think about how our engine configuration is going to live and how we're going to reference that from inside everywhere. because I'm assuming we're going to want to have some things that aren't just, hard coded, some things that values that we're going to be able to tweak. I don't know if we need to necessarily draw the relation to everything, but at least we should be aware of the module for like
Well, what we can do is just
configuration management and
go like
loading.
this and say the game engine's right here and leave it as game engine block here and then do a game engine enclosure up here. Is that what I'm saying?
Yeah. As long as it's something we're going to be aware of what we want to actually make configurable and how we want to be able to change that. And if that's something that we want to be able to tweak on the fly, if that's something that's going to have to need to, process through a shutdown.
I, for the life of me, cannot imagine a graceful shutdown ever happening.
Yeah, I don't really see a need for it. We can just terminate it when we're pushing new versions.
Yeah, well, I mean, like a shutdown will just be like a special event that blocks all other input, runs through all current event queue, and then stops. And that's all a graceful shutdown needs to be.
I agree. That is a great thing for a graceful shutdown to be. However, I feel like we will really, really, really need to blue-green this and like do a switch over that way rather than trying to like cross our fingers and hope that the queue gets processed correctly and like we don't get kicked over by Heroku. Because that happens.
Basically, I think what he's saying is we should probably get a stable provider before we worry about being able to gracefully shut down.
I mean, we can do both. I mean, having a shutdown command isn't really hard.
No,
it just means
it's
process.
not difficult.
Yeah, stop. We should still be able to do that so that we can, if we want to turn it off or stop it for whatever reason, push a new build or something. We don't have to just hopefully nothing important's happening. See ya.
I'm all
But we
for
don't have to
adding
have
it mainly because it's gonna take so little effort.
Yeah, I mean it's good.
I'm sure we'll end up using it and be like, hey, I'm glad we built this.
I'm trying to find some documentation on how Heroku shuts down the free tier.
Gotcha. Seeing if they send a notification to your system first to allow you to do a graceful shutdown before they trample you.
Yeah. Well, that's thread limits. That's good to know, but not what I care about right now.
Thread limits for when we multi-thread the game.
It'll be multi-thread anyways for most of this stuff. If we're doing event queue processing.
That will be our
I'm not too worried
manager in the event queue.
Too worried because we don't definitely don't need to use Heroku. There's a lot of other more stable things we can just throw this on.
For sure.
Oh yeah, you were saying you have some
I have
resources that we can use.
Yeah, I have quite a bit. I have an AWS server I can probably even throw some stuff on too. I'm not using much on there.
And as soon as the channel starts making a little bit more money, we can even just fund our own server.
Wow.
But my main point was just so that we have something that if it's running like midstream and we realize there's like a configuration wrong, we want to be able to be like, oh shit, quickly stop it, make that change and then start it just in case, and be able to like have a shutdown command that doesn't immediately tank the thing. It can at least like finish whatever's in there, so we don't, if there was like a match going on, we don't have to just like. But I mean, if the server turns off, the server turns off, and that's just nothing we can really do about that, anyways. That's hopefully why we store some stuff in the database.
Yeah, it looks like Heroku does use a standard SIG term.
Okay.
Just for shutdown. So as long as we can hold on to that for a second while we finish processing the queue and then let it continue on, then it should be fine.
Right on. And like I said, like 0.1, we're not worried about trampling user data anyway. That's just
Yeah.
a thing that's going to happen a lot. You're going to log in, really like, yeah, we made some changes, so all the data's gone. Enjoy, have fun. It's going to happen. That's how you test games.
For the beta, definitely.
Yeah.
But I mean, ideally, we'll be able to get it to a point where we can actually migrate data between change sets, which would be great.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be, definitely. I'd say by beta, you need that. Alpha, wiping out the data every time you make a change is actually probably preferable. So you get a fresh take on that data and test it out properly over and over and over and over and over again. But yeah, once you get to the beta point, that's more fine-tuned and, little changes. You don't want to be wiping out user data by that point. By that point, you should have sustainable user data.
Should being the operative word.
I always use the word should in the software world.
Beta tests that do not actually clean up their data when they need to. Or a bad DB migration happens and then you've got just mangled data all over the place and you're trying to figure out why my interface is breaking and it turns out it's just bad data in the database. It makes me very sad.
I had to deal with a bad data in the database issue just recently too. It was causing a whole world of syncing issues between the two systems. Go figure.
Mm-hmm.
Admin tools / dev tools. We should probably figure out how we want to do that. If this is something we want to just build into the engine itself, or have this be something that we want to, depending on how we want to access it. If we want it to be like if we want to just have admin or dev like roles that we can assign and then go through Twitch chat to assign these kind of commands, or do we want to build an interface that we can directly control to the game engine?
100% the latter. Twitch is not reliable.
RageBot already has the capability to figure out if it's a moderator or not, right?
Yes.
We can build another.
I'm just thinking for like 0.1 initial release, you could really just say, if it's a moderator, let them change the game.
Yeah, it is. We can have we can build like admin dev tools to be like special like events that we'll run. We just need to figure out how we want these to incur from it. We can do multiple sources. It doesn't matter as long as it gets to the engine. So we can definitely do like a Twitch chat whisper as long as this person's a moderator and I can figure that out, or have like a username store that we can assign. The other option is building a module into RageBot that can then forward the same information to the game engine, or we can build it directly in the game engine and access it through either like a web interface or some sort of just like console streaming if I want to do that as well.
Right now, RageBot has chat parsing. Does it has whisper parsing already?
It did at one point, but I think I took it out and I don't remember why.
Okay. I'm sure there was a reason if you took it out. So
it might be dead. It might not be dead, but it might be dead.
Let's just assume that whisper parsing is dead. We already have chat parsing, and we already have moderator channel moderator detection. So we can go on the assumption that our moderators are moderators because we trust them, and we can go ahead and let any moderator have control over the game's moderation side for now. I don't see a reason to lock it down more than that because we trust our moderators. That's why they're moderators.
It's not so much trust. It's mostly just for actual development because we're going to want to be able to run and do dev tools when the stream and chat isn't running. As well as we probably don't want to do.
Even if the stream's not on, chat's running.
I guess that's fair. We just turn RageBot on there.
Yeah.
But that's if we want to put if it's probably fine, as I don't will have any commands that won't be fine. It's just a thing of if we want all the commands just to be public of what we're doing, if we want to just be spamming the chat, if we're trying to tweak and do some things through the dev tools.
I don't see us spamming chat while I'm streaming. If I'm working on it, we'll probably be working on it offline. If you guys are working on it while I'm streaming, I don't see you being in a state where you're like spamming commands every few seconds anyway. You'll be probably writing code, working on that front, and then doing some tests. I'm not worried about hiding commands from people. That really doesn't concern me.
We can, we can always just write a text input directly into the engine when it's running anyways. So if we're on the server, we can just, type commands directly into it.
Yeah,
For
I
development.
mean, if it's hosted in the proper place, we could even just RDP to the server and interface with it. Or not RDP,
I guess SSH or whatever.
Thank you,
Same.
SSH. That's what I was trying to say. I use RDP all the time. I haven't had to SSH in so long.
It's fair.
I miss SSH. You can do so much.
It's real nice.
It is.
It's real clean.
Fast.
I do like a cursor sometimes. I do like a cursor. I don't like forwarding desktop through SSH. So sometimes I don't mind RDP because it's just such a nice protocol. Like Microsoft just killed it with it. I'm like, my God, it is buttery smooth. Can't even tell half the. You can play games through it. Can't even tell that you're on some remote machine. It's just, it's fantastic.
You can kind of play games.
I play games all the time through it. It is fine. You can
local?
set it up. No, remote. You don't need a whole lot. You can do it fairly well. Used to play not like you can't play like Call of Duty and like those kind of games, but you can play like Civilization, Sims, any kind of management game you can play, no problem.
I definitely can. Well, I guess I'm doing a double RDP. That's probably my issue.
Well, that and like it really does depend on what kind of game you're playing.
Well, no, I get like instant slideshow even if I try to like open Steam or anything like that.
Oh, really?
But I'm
Brutal.
going from like external to my internal server and then from my server to my desktop through double RDP sessions. So
Yeah, that's not good.
yeah. I'm gonna have to finish it before it gets streamed. Race is on, buddy. Hopefully.
The good news is that the PS3 hardware is now available, so Deus will be able to tackle God of War, and it sounded like you might end up doing Dead Space on PS3 as well.
Yes, I will be. And
Those will be a bit of a buffer.
yeah, and the hardware's not here yet. I don't know where you got that idea. It's on the way. Should be here by the 16th, it says, but COVID shipping.
Right, yeah, I totally forgot about that delay.
Yeah, we hope it gets here on the day it said. So admin and dev tools, yeah, they're just gonna kind of float in their own space for now, I guess.
Yeah, we don't have to draw that relation, then that's just fine. It's the same similar vein, at least with logging. It's kind of just float there. We'll probably want some things to not have to go through events to log. It'll probably be more of like a singleton, because if we have issues with if we couple that, then if you have to go through paths and that path is broken, then all of a sudden we have no logs and we're crying because it's like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, my thought was go straight from the input handler to the log, probably.
Yeah, I think most things should just be able to just go to the logger. Like it'll just sit
Most
in
things
memory.
should be able to just talk to the logger directly, you're saying?
Yeah, it'll just directly be able to write a log if necessary. Event processor will probably be the most thing that'll logging, but for like critical and like debug flagged things, we should still have the ability just to be like, all right, just log this.
Yeah,
Don't worry about
I'm good with logging being a singleton object that can just be loaded anywhere and tasks sent to it, and it'll just figure out the message of that and log it with a timestamp and date stamp and fun stuff like that. The source, I guess if multiple events are talking to the logging, it'll either have to record the source that it was logged from or record different sources to a different file.
Yeah, we can,
maybe both. The more information you can have in a log, the better, which is why I like using third-party logging services like Splunk
L4J. Oh, I see. Those log parsing services you're talking about.
Yeah, Splunk is really good. Anything that you can at least put attributes on and then be able to sort and filter by attributes is fantastic. So
yeah,
and
it's a lot easier.
Use Splunk a fair bit.
Apparently, there is a free download of Splunk that you can have and just run on your own thing, which is amazing.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Oh, I'm all for setting up a Splunk install for this then. I can do that. That used to be my job. I can do that.
Literally.
Yep. Literally installing servers and services was my job. I'm sure I can get it working. I mean, I do it for fun. All day at home anyway. I have a full Active Directory domain controller running my house.
Which realistically is probably pretty overkill.
Oh,
but
it's completely
awesome.
overkill. Yeah, I had actually encoded L2TP from my office to my house to access my home server. Good times. Oh, apparently I just bought some. My Twitch subscription's just renewed. That's what that was. I just paid some Twitch streamer.
Just supporting Twitchers.
Yep, guy, I love the service. I love what everyone out there does. We gotta keep it going. Keep it supported. What time? It's only 5:20.
Yeah,
It is early.
I think we've sort of run out of things to talk about as far as like architecture side. Maybe we could do a little bit of demo work in Artisy to get some potential animals worked up.
Sure.
Actually, are we able to draw this too in Artisy? Does that fit in there at any level? I'd like to.
Do what?
If we can keep everything in one area, it'd be really nice. If we could just shove everything in Artisy, I think that'd be fantastic.
The diagram, you mean?
Yeah. I guess even if it's just an image, that's probably just fine too.
Yep, totally. There are spaces for everything. Here, let me show you a quick example in the RPG story side, because this has stuff that. So like here's my base stats that I've been working on. So this is all one text file, and I can go into different areas of the text file just by jumping to them, even though it's written as one. And I can literally just like, oh, I want to rearrange this stuff, grab, lapse.
It's so nice for
Put around.
design documents.
Where's my grab? There we go. Renumbers it, moves the whole sub with it.
Damn it! No, I want this. Fuck.
Yeah, I'll probably end up buying a license as well for working on this because it looks like a fantastic tool.
I'm checking if they have a student here, please. I'll have a student for the next while.
Create new page.
They do.
Sign up for some of the free MIT courses, and then you're technically a student.
Well, I was just gonna send Pseudo a license as a gift, but if he's buying it while we're streaming, go nuts.
I'm seeing what the student thing is. It'll be valid for 1 year, so that's. I don't know if this is. There's nothing else on this page. It just says, "Here, next step to become a pro for student," and it's like there's no button.
Assistant
It's just like
errors. Project folder.
Make an folder.
Projects. I do not have a lot of projects. Promise.
Not at all.
The character creator and character creator API were fun. That was how I learned how to make APIs. I made a character creator for D20. What am I making
That was
now?
one of my first projects as well. Nice. I like that this page is literally just the splash.
Which page?
There's nothing in the console. And there's nothing weird in the network tab.
like I feel like it's just missing something. So I guess there isn't a student here.
It's missing the page.
Oh, I see. You guys are sharing a link there and talking about what's on it.
Yeah, I posted it to our Discord. It baited me. It was like, oh yeah, student, and it's like, all right, well, how do I get it? It's like,
The next step to
The
becoming
button's
a pro Artisy Draft 3 for students. Notice.
Now what?
License is only valid for 1 year and needs to be renewed manually. We reserve the right to demand the proof of eligibility after purchase. Types of proof of enrollment we accept are student ID card, report, transcript, tuition statement.
I found a page that has the rest of the content.
Yay!
Oh, shop, not EN. Interesting.
Yeah, their routing is kind of busted.
Yeah. Yeah, it turns out they're better at making tooling than websites.
I mean, fair enough. The tool is really good.
It is. Yes. Much love to the Artisy team from GBD. Okay, so we're mostly going to be working with entities here. since we're going to be creating the animals. Oh, but first we're going to need template design. And every time you open up the page for the first time, it's going to show you something like this. So first we define.
This is how you do the thing.
Yeah, first property definitions get made, and that's like a drop down for species that contains human, elf, orc, and goblin. Okay, that's going to be all one thing. And then when you go to make character traits, putting the species property definition that you've created on it automatically brings in all those properties of the drop down for the selection. Make sense? Start you with these sort of basics, property definitions. So we're probably going to want a drop down list. Probably want a few of them. I don't have all of the info up. Let me grab.
Just grab our document.
Yeah.
That's why we wrote all this stuff down.
Indeed. Oh. Time to work it all again. Let's just start from scratch.
Yeah. Why not?
All right. Panel. Why do people play games? It was fun. Design 101. Unity bot game. I'll just do this. You may not be able to read it very well, but it's there.
Is it though? Are
No,
you sure that that's the right document?
That's totally not the right document.
I linked it in Discord chat. I also tried to pull up the other document and was sorely mistaken.
Community bot game. There we go. Not the 101. That was just teaching people the basics of game design. I remember that one. That one was fun too. Definitely watch that if you want to catch up to where we are. Okay. With aliens.
With aliens, indeed.
Okay, so drop down list. No.
We'll need a bunch of ints just for our stats.
Yeah,
or a map of ints maybe.
That will probably just be done when we get there. Like we don't need, like if it's just a number and there's no specific min-maxing on the number and stuff like that, then we could just throw a raw number onto the sheet. But like, you know, if this was like an AD&D character sheet that we're creating, we could create the number property definition, call it stat, and then in here, a default value is 6, right? And then have a min value of 3, a max value of, I don't know, 25 or 30 or something, I think is the max. Right, and then create all of our scoping, and then whenever we add a stat, we can name it strength, dex, whatever, and it's a stat number, and bring in all those lists with it. Make sense?
Nice. I like that.
Yes. It's almost like they know computers.
Yeah, it's almost like they know what they're doing. And every time you show me a new thing in this tool, I just go, wow, this is a really good tool.
Are we actually running on families? Because that would be a good use for the dropdown. Do we want to keep its family tracked?
What? Why?
I think it might help if we want to keep stats consistent. That was my only concern for there, was that like it makes it a bit easier to kind of have like, you know, canines and stuff like that where it would be a bit more ferocious. So, you know, we can at least organize it kind of that way of the similar, like they're going to be different stats, but at least they're kind of similar and grouped that way.
Well, it will be something we're tracking on every animal, what family it is, right? It's not going to play a huge role necessarily, but you still want that vital info display. We can use it at some point. but I think it should be worth recording.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't know that we'll use it yet, but I know we did have the idea of having a sort of like a tree that once you go into that tree, you're kind of stuck there. You can still, be a solo hunter or a pack hunter within that tree, or a
Yep.
herbivore within that tree.
Yep.
But the tree itself is just kind of, once you're in it, this is your tree.
So one of the other things I really like is it has a display name, which is a human name where you can have spaces and capital letters and stuff like that, but it also creates a technical name, and it uses the technical name for all of your entity ID and different stuff like that, which is where it won't even allow you to use spaces in your naming here. Underscores only, special characters, stuff like that. You can see.
As somebody who has built his own drop-down box, yeah, that's how those work.
This is the most riveting of content right here, watching me.
Enter some stuff.
Yep.
It is a really nice UI though. I like the not just dark theme, but actually some kind of nice theming going on.
A little bit of color to it.
Yeah.
Most of the time I find a lot of these tools are like ugly because they're made by engineers, which is fine because it's very engineered. It's practical.
Now we can drop family onto anything that we're making, and it automatically brings in all of these drop down options. And when we add a new family to the game, simply coming to this drop down list and adding the new family will automatically update everything that has this attached to it.
Which is really nice.
Yeah, it makes
Nice
changes
reference.
so fucking easy. I built a card game using this system that has 420 cards, and I couldn't have done it without this app. It was a lot of work. It was fun. I look forward to it getting finished one day.
One day. But as with most programmers, their side projects are innumerable, and
Yep.
the number that actually get finished is very small.
Yep. So here we have the actual entities where we'd be making them. These use... Been a little bit. Let's make an entity remind me what I'm doing. I haven't actually used this. We're going to call this animal. Everything is going to be this one entity that we're making today, basically. Edit. Right, and we are using features, so we need to make the features. Thank you. Thank you, game, for reminding. Features appear. We're gonna nuke them. Nuke that. We're going to call this one, create new feature, basic. This is literally everything that we add to the game. So here's our sort of graph on how does everything have a family in the game? Probably not, but everything will have a name, right?
Yeah, everything will definitely have a name. Everything will have a set of tags that tell you how you can interact with it.
Interaction tags?
Like, is it an item? Is it a what have you? How, like, can you throw it? Can you use it? Can you talk to it? Whatever.
Is it an item would be more taxonomy. Classification, right?
Yeah, it was a bad example, just off the top of my head. But it, like, we would need to have some sort of modeling for how you interact with whatever this thing is.
How are you seeing that chosen? Just raw text, drop down list, actual tags to be added. There is an actual animal tag system as well, too, right? So we can, I'll probably set up a multi-list for that one.
The way that I envisioned it was like, our enemy class, whatever it ends up being, will be able to be, fought with items that we eventually have in the game, because as we've discussed before, itemization is very important for a game
Well,
like this.
we'll be creating items in here.
Yeah, and it'll need to know that if it's a piece of equipment, or if it's a modification that you can add to yourself, or if it's an item that you can.
Okay, so basically we need a taxonomy spot.
Yeah.
That's probably good with a small text as well. Type?
Sure.
See, we can create a layout as we go here, put them all over the place, however you want it to look. And right here, this is going to be, I think I called it basic. Standard. Call it standard properties. Something that everything has. So everything's going to have a name and a type. That's probably about it. Between animals, items, and abilities. Those are the three off the top of my head. The only thing they have in common is they have a type and they have a name.
Though, now that I think about it, do we need to have the type for enemies? Yeah, we do. Yep, so name and type. I think those are the two fields that everything will end up having.
There we go. So that's our standard properties. So then let's do a new feature, which is our entity properties. So this is NPCs, animals, stuff like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this on that side, because we need to be able to see over here, because they're going to have a whole bunch of numbers for this. It's going to be ferocity. Should we specify that it's ferocity required? Or will we just understand in our mentality that these are our requirements?
I think we can just understand they're all required.
I'm good with that.
And I think specifically in this case, because we're talking about essentially actors in the game, that they all have to have these stats. They just have to have them.
Yep. That's why I'm putting them all in there. As soon as you become an entity, you need to have this kind of stuff decided for you.
Which frees us up to have items be non-entities, which is much easier to reason around.
Absolutely. I agree an item shouldn't be. Well, depends. Depends on the game. This game, an item should not be entities. Some games, items exist in world space and require being entities. At which point, you detract your entity stats from your entity object and you attach it to a actor object, which is a subtype of entity. If you're following along at home, that's what you do. Oh, HPs. They need the HPs.
This is very true. Bark.
Min value 1. I'm going to set them all to min value 1. We don't want negative values being entered here.
Right, but we do want HP to be able to drop to 0, because that's your win.
These are your mins, not your current.
Are you saying we don't want to be able to overflow your ferocity?
Yes.
Pull a Gandhi and be so passive you end up being like the most ferocious.
Better yet, underflow. Underflow your HP right back around to the other side.
Yeah, I forgot. That's what happened with the Gandhian civilization. became too nice.
So nice that he wins. And they'll have a family if they have stats, won't they?
Yes.
Oops.
So the min and max values here, I think, are confusing me. The min and max are your min and max totals.
Your min and max value that can be entered into this specific field.
Gotcha. So, like, at runtime, we will know that it has an amount of hit points, and then we can increment and decrement them on the runtime object in order to manipulate them rather than relying specifically on this structure.
Correct. This is just limits to make sure that the data being entered into the tool is within the bounds of realism when exported into the system. Basically, we're already putting in our first checks and bounds. Oh my, 37 people are going to be extremely confused! Hello, CarTube! Welcome, welcome. We're doing silly techie stuff.
We're making a game.
Yeah, this is part of making a game. I'm actually showing off one of my favorite utilities right now called Artisy. There we go. Words are hard.
Especially names.
Yeah, names and me just don't get along. So this is actually a cool little digital utility that we're using to model the properties of all of the stuff within the game so that we can start understanding where things are in the game. Hey, welcome home, Lo. Welcome home. Okay. So substats are calculated and probably don't need to be in the model, correct?
Yep, those can be done in memory.
But we do want to create some tags. Nanu, indeed. Okay, so let's apply these. And let's go to our not our templates, our property definitions.
And for anybody who has stuck around with Cars Raid, first of all, thank you.
Yeah.
Secondly, this is a game that we've been working on for a while now with the parts of our community to build a game for people to play and chat. And it's going to end up being a little text-based RPG where you are adorable and or ferocious animals that are defending their home from alien invasion.
So I don't have a multi-element in this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put like all the tags into a big drop down and then put 4 of the drop down. And everything can have up to 4 tags. I don't see things having more than 4 tags.
But we are giving people the ability to add tags by spending XP. So we don't necessarily want to have such a low limit on it.
These are the required...
It can't support having just indefinite elements added to it?
Well, we could put it in text, or we could add as many elements as we want. There is a script as well. Take a look at what script is.
Well, I mean, if internally we just do like a semicolon delimited list, it'll be fine.
But no. That's for their character, right? This isn't game data. This is game definition, right? This is the tags needed to become that animal. Not that the player is limited to 4 tags. Remember that.
Right.
Yeah, we can just make a separate like requirement kind of configuration property, and it just has one of them.
Basically, this is like I said, the requirements to be that animal. So you can have up to 4 tags required this way. No animal would need more than 4 tags to become that animal at this point. If we want to change that, we can easily change the definitions. And that will change every animal we have created already. And then just a quick JSON export and we're done, right? That's the whole point of this tool, which is quickly becoming more amazing.
The UI engineer in me keeps thinking of it from the user's perspective, which is not actually what we're doing right now.
Yeah, totally don't care what the user sees right. Okay. So let's just get all these tags entered. Super interesting data entry. Let's all laugh at all of Deus's typos. There they all go. There they all go.
All at once. You're just proving yourself correct.
Yep. Well, I have to be correct, right? Hey, I'm doing pretty good.
Don't jinx it.
I have to. Not entertaining for people if I succeed.
Random tidbit that I just remembered when you brought up removing some of the safety from Redux Rage. One of the Crash Bandicoot devs did like a postmortem story. I can't remember which channel it is. I'll put it on our Discord in a bit. But what they were doing to get more memory was they started deleting from the Sony C libraries to free up some space to write in their own stuff. And they would just delete stuff and then run it and see how stable it is. And then if it was fine, keep trucking on forward. And they just kept removing things from the library that they didn't need or rewriting things as apparently like on launch, the code wasn't very great and it wasn't very optimal. So they had to just start removing things. And you're not supposed to do that, right? I mean, you're supposed to, for consistency's sake, you're not supposed to just delete the stuff they give you. But I thought that was hilarious. It reminded me of that.
Yeah. The culture of changing a library is one that, as a modern developer, not a big fan. Leave your libraries alone. Going to be way easier to maintain that way. But as somebody who understands working within constraints and the tiny amounts of memory that they had available on old consoles like the PS1, yeah, you kind of gotta.
Oh, yeah.
That's just how it was.
One of the old buddies I used to go to high school with ended up getting a job writing black box Linux kernels. That is some memory restrained shit. I talked to him one time and I'm like, so what are you doing? Oh, trying to make this kernel do this and this and this on 128K. Good luck with that.
Have fun, I guess.
I want to give a quick shout out to Ars Technica. I posted a link in our chat there, but they have the War Story series. And if anyone's interested in like game development, even like the low level side of things, it is fantastic. And the Crash Bandicoot one gets quite technical, but it's still kind of easy to digest, and it's just kind of amazing the problems they run into and how they have to solve them and things you wouldn't see are limitations that are there. The reason why the games are a certain way, not out of like game design choice, but out of just like, oh, we're limited, so we need to make it this way, and then it almost seems like it was planned out of the get-go, but it's definitely just a result of a restriction.
Okay, I'm going to put 6 in. I don't see anything ever taking more than 6 tags to become.
Yeah, I think 6 is a good number.
Oh, now we can actually come in and make a basic entity just to show people that we're actually getting somewhere by going standard properties, entity stats. Now it has a name, a type, HP, all of the stats.
And some tags.
Yeah. Bam. So now, because we didn't go through all the work of creating this tag, you look at it, you're like, you're only putting the tag in one place. Well, we've only put it in one place for now, and if we were to ever go back and change it, all we have to do is come to this drop down and change it here, and it'll change on every animal we've ever created and designed and entered into the system.
It's true.
What else do we need?
I'd imagine it's just like backed by an enum.
Yeah, it's actually quite well implemented on the back end. Easy quick. UI ideas, what's Intel. This is all brainstorming stuff. Game settings, genre. Substat model is calculated, as we were talking about. So those aren't requirements.
Maybe we create a item entity.
Yeah, we should probably have abilities and everything else be configurable as well. Any sort of
Well,
object interaction.
this is designed as a requirement, so abilities aren't a requirement; they're from it. But we can definitely model abilities.
Yeah, sorry. I meant we can at least model the data in here.
Yeah.
From the doc.
You want all of your data modeled in here, because then when we dump it out, we'll literally just be creating a JSON dump of every ability, every animal, every enemy, every this, every that, and it's good to go.
Gasp.
Forgot something. That's what we forgot.
Ah, yes, we did forget Alien.
There are enemies in the game too.
What? No. Not like this game is primarily focused around combat or anything.
Yeah, it's not like I had anything to do with designing it. I never make combat in my games. For those that don't know me, I love combat.
It's in all of his games.
Half the time, I don't even design a game. I just design a combat system. That's the best part. Who needs a game? Just combat. Combat.
So I'm at the part of Sekiro where there's just a bunch of people shooting at you, and you're just jumping from platform to platform.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Fuck that. That's the first time. All I know is that like 10 things shoot at me at once as I'm running on a bridge, and then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make this jump, and then it hits me mid jump. I'm like, okay.
I know where you are.
And there's that.
He's at the gun
Can't remember
fort.
his name. Yeah, can't remember the dude's name you run into.
Snake Eyes.
Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
It's not a dude.
That
It's a
guy.
chick.
That thing.
Girl.
It killed me too fast.
Yeah, she'll fuck you up. She's harder
She'll
than
kill you real quick.
I'd say she's harder than most of the bosses in the game.
I got frustrated, so I got them stuck on the cliff, so I could just take a breather because it was taking me a little bit. I'm like, all right, gonna get you stuck here for a second, and the next thing you know, they just like shoot me through the floor in the face. I'm like,
Have you cleared the castle already?
I don't think so.
Go do that. That's where you were supposed to be in the game.
I think so.
You hadn't played in a while. You came into chat and you're like, I haven't played in so long. I don't remember what I was doing. And I
left the castle, walked through, killed those guys on the floor down there, and then just crossed a bridge with some dude on it who I thought was just a regular dude, but wasn't a regular dude, and he was easy enough to kill at least. And I don't even remember how I got here. I started just jumping. I just jumped off a cliff, and I'm like, hopefully there's a thing for me to hook. And then now I'm getting shot at by like a bunch of people.
Yeah, you want to go back to the... So you, at the very beginning, you remember, you lost your arm, and then they took Kuro away from you. So you're still at the point of trying to rescue that kid. He's in the castle. That's where you're at. Give you some direction. All right, so ability has a name and a type, but what else are abilities going to have? We need to create an ability feature.
They will have an effect. They will definitely have an effect.
Yeah. Do we need a special thing for that, or just a medium text box for effect?
Well, most of the effects will have either a stat or a stat change, or no, they will just be stat changes. You will either add or remove attack from an entity. You will add or remove a stat from an entity, like add to or remove from a stat from an entity.
I see an ability as being an activated thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and the results of the ability are stat modifiers. And they will trigger.
Or health modifier for the enemy.
Which is essentially the same thing.
Yeah. Just making that clear for everyone. Taking HP off of something is one of the things that is a modifier.
Yes. You'll be acting on an entity's stats as part of an ability. That is also probably how items will work, I would imagine. Or consumables, at least.
So we can go back, rename this effect.
Yeah, I think most of these can just be stuff that trigger events that get handled by the battle state manager, and then those just get processed in any way they want, and we can just kind of have the abilities just be like a depending on how we want to do it. If we want to just like plan out specific events with like values to take in, so like a event for modifying a specific stat, passing the model like the actual value for it, and that's what it does. Or if we want to actually just like plan out each event and just trigger those events that way.
Well, I've called the main thing description. Since we will need a description, that'll be a tooltip return or whatever. So every ability will need that. I've put that at the top. I've also set it as mandatory. I haven't been doing that, but we do have a mandatory checkbox within Artisy so that when we export our data, all the mandatory fields have data before it exports.
Nice.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes, I'm sure you would appreciate that one.
The next thing is that it will have a value that it applies to a stat, and it will have a description of which stat it's going to work against.
But that would probably be under description.
The way I foresee using this is we will grab an ability from our big ol' ability list, pull the effect and target off of it, and it would be like -5 as the effect to HP. It'll deal 5 damage. Or if it's a healing ability or item, it'll be +10 or whatever to HP.
Thinking we might want to use a script. I'm thinking we could do the math in the script then.
Why do it in the data when you can do it in the model itself?
I think we just need to model it so then the actual system can just read all this in and then be able to perform it from there.
Okay.
It'll
But you
just
just
take
want a
the
raw number for the effect?
yeah, for now I think that would probably be fine. I mean, we might want to expand it later to support like if it's an ability that's based off a stat that the animal will have. But I just for now, just so we have some data, we can just have like, target of like the effect, the stat it's going to affect, and the value that it's going to affect it.
So what
So
we
can
need
just
now
have
is
some
basically a drop down for the
All
target.
the stats. Yeah.
Okay. We can do that. Where's my drop downs?
But how would we model like self-targeted versus enemy targeted?
Well, does it have to target self or is it only target self?
It is target self. Like this is for an effect. So it can be something that affects you.
Yep.
Or it can be something that affects your enemy.
So I'd say for the most part, if it can affect anything, then that's a game time decision. It doesn't matter here.
But
if it's
like,
only self-target, I can add a Boolean.
I think we need to handle conditional logic anyways, and I think once we do conditional logic, that'll just kind of be a part of that.
But if you want to make the ability visible and logical right from this point that it only targets self, I could add a self-target Boolean. Or only self Boolean. Because that's an on-off toggle.
And if self-target is false, then we assume that it targets the opponent.
Well, we assume by default that it can target whatever you want it to target.
That's interesting. How do you figure that an ability an effect can target either you or your opponent? Like what would the use case for that be? Would you want to attack yourself? Would you want to heal your enemy?
I see potentials where these could be things that you would want to do. Will it be in the first version? Probably not. Probably not. But using just having the freedom to target wherever you want to target is a good thing. The only limit normally is like a PBAOE or a only self-targeted ability. So I'll just create a only self-targeted Boolean, and that will prevent you from targeting anything else with it.
I like that. It feels like it could, like it feels like we need 3 states to me. But for now, I think as long as it's not self-targeted, then you know that it's on the enemy, and that's fine.
Yes.
Eventually, we can turn that Boolean into a drop-down list or an enum in the code or whatever.
Yep.
To have it be any self enemy.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Those are your 3 targets.
The first thing that comes to mind when you're like, why would you heal an enemy, is Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Final Fantasy Undeads, but that's not what we're making. We're not making that.
But I could easily see things where it would be beneficial to you, but detrimental to the aliens.
If you can see the use case, then sure. Absolutely. I do think it is important to have a clear model of that as well, though.
I agree.
So maybe we should make it just a three possibility drop down.
Yep, I'm good with that. I mean, I don't see there ever being more than 3.
It could be friendlies only for combat 2.
Oh yeah. 4 potentially. You're right.
Yeah, for combat version 2.0. But if we make it an enum / drop down now, then that's fine.
Oops.
Another random tidbit of code gore that I've had to deal with.
Oh yeah.
One of the projects I was working on was very, very heavily using enums across like 20 projects, but not every project referenced the project with the enums into it. So then they just copy pasted the enum again, and then wrote a enum parsing function project that is already built into .NET enums anyways. And then they just kind of wrote a switch statement that takes in the value and then casts it from the int to the enum, even though you can just cast it without a switch statement. You don't have to do like switch value case 1 return, like enum dot this value. You can just take that int and cast it.
Stop! You're hurting me.
And it's just like neat. You got to use something, and then the fun part about that is that the enums were different between their projects, so they weren't consistent, and their values changed, and it was like, why?
Okay, so you can target HP, energy, or stats with an ability.
Yes. So do all entities need to have energy as well?
Yeah, I totally forgot that energy was even a thing, and I'll totally go back and add that.
Yeah, so did I, which is good that you remembered now.
Yeah. And it's a good thing we're using something like Artisy, where we don't have to go back and edit everything again. We can just go and put it in.
Yay.
Is that, I can't remember, is that what we're using to track the turn stuff, or is that for actually using abilities?
That is turn stuff.
Okay, cool. I was thinking something we might have forgotten, but that is
Edit.
Can you export to multiple
What do you mean?
JSON files with this, or does it just do one giant block?
It just does one giant file of everything. But you can target what you export. So what we can do is target, just the entities and export into an entity file, and target just the abilities and export into an ability file. That's not
an issue. Okay, yeah, so we can do multiple files.
Yeah, it's not part of the system, but you can just make it do that.
Yeah. You can just export multiple times to create multiple files, and you're good. You're good. All right, we need a number. Go right here. Now this one is energy.
NRG.
Minimum value is 0. Is mandatory. I'm going to come in here and make all these family is mandatory. These aren't going to be mandatory because they're the requirement. Same with mandatory tags. No tags are mandatory. No stats are mandatory and no tags are mandatory so that you can have a animal with no requirements to be it. I see some nodding going on. People are agreeing with me. Oh
Nodding.
no. That's terrible. See, now when we come down and look at these, got energy. Yay. We could potentially create an alien and just drop entity stats onto it and the energy would be there again.
Which would be awesome.
So the effect, a value, a target stat, is that really it? A description
Value,
of
target stat,
plain
and description. Yeah, I think that's all we. Oh, target stat and also target entity, as we were just discussing.
And I need a drop down for that.
Yeah.
Drop down. New. Drop down. Target. Oh, we wanted to do 3 first, right?
Yeah, for now. Combat 2.0 may get more complicated. I wonder how smart this is. I wonder if this does actually like export as essentially aliased values to an enum and does it as a lookup.
Well, there's a few different ways you can export it actually, so.
I have fallen
hey,
in
they
love.
got Unity built into it now too. You can export straight to Unity.
Nice.
Here's the Unreal Engine, direct export, data filtering.
Because the thing I have fallen in love with the ordered hash data structure recently, and I love it. I love it so much.
So here's which top level nodes do you want in there, right? We just really want the assets that we've been creating.
Markup for text formatting too? Oh, that's so handy. And I bet you can get like markdown and stuff in there as well.
Yeah, probably. Just do a quick export. Explorer. Trying to do it in the other window. Save you all my file structures, but we'll go find that. Where did it go? Open with use Sublime. It wasn't even in the list. I'm just gonna drag and drop it. There we go. Ah, that's not a lot. Apparently it was not assets that I was thinking. Project. This is actually different from what I'm doing now.
Oh, they changed the UI on you?
Yep. Do I have to actually add it? No. Ordered data 5 objects. Okay. Yeah, do that. Okay, that's because we hit project. So name, detail name, the GUID, technical name.
Nice.
Oh, I know why. Because we haven't actually created any entities yet. That's why. Dog. Template, choose template, animal. Okay, bam. HP, base 10, family, canine, energy 1, done. Save project. Export. There we go.
Now we should have some actual stuff.
Nope.
Nope, no stuff.
Making myself look like a pro here.
The proest.
Where have they
Just
hidden it on me?
export the things.
Simply
Just grab 'em
data
all.
layout. Which objects, flow, entities, all. Yeah. I'll just grab it all. It'll sort it for me. Let's see how they're structuring it right now. Global variables.
It would also honestly be down just to even have our enums and stuff defined in
Yep.
just data, rather than having it to match what's in the code.
Here's the JSON for your entity tags.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's enumming it.
It is an enum in
Yep.
the actual thing. Nice.
You can put it, get everything that you've done right from here in a nice, easy to consume JSON file.
And we'll figure out how to export small chunks of it eventually.
Yeah, I've done it before. It's just a new syntax for, there's been an update to the app. It's been a while since I've used it. One of 3. Oh, so apparently dog didn't get exported yet, but that's okay. That's okay. This is the raw.
Rip dog.
Yep. But it does have entities as listed. Like I said, I'll come play with it.
Yeah, we'll
The
figure
more.
it out.
What time is it now? Oh, geez, it's past time anyway. So thanks everybody for hanging out all Saturday afternoon with us while we ramble meaninglessly about code.
Yeah. Hopefully you learned a thing, or at least enjoyed getting to see us make a little bit of progress on designing the bot game.
Yeah.
We will be taking this away and going to actually building some of the game itself over the next little while. We'll be reporting back at some point in the future with our changes. Let you know what's going on, how far we've made it, that sort of stuff.
And since I'm a week behind now, next Saturday, we're going to give away some free games.
Yeah.
So come hang out with us all week. How it's going to work. If you're a sub, your name's in the draw. Come win some free games. We want to entertain you while you're in lockdown. If you're not a sub, don't have to be a sub. You can come and throw a bit. Pretty much. So all week, the top 3 bit cheers, the top 3 gift subs, and the top 3 donations will all be entered into a draw. And we'll be throwing some games away every single week as long as this lockdown and our keys last. We have quite a few keys, so there should be quite a few games.
There will be games.
Yeah.
Games will be flying every which way.
I think I have about 30 keys to give away myself.
I've got somewhere in that number as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So yeah, let us give you games. It sounds like fun. Until then, thank you very, very much for hanging out with Games by Design. I am Deus.
I am Rage.
I'm Pseudo.
May all of your shots be headshots.